All righty. Well, before we go, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a couple of minutes left before our expiration of time, and we are going to do a segment here that we often do on Brian's program, the Drive-Thru, called Guess the Program. And the premise is that Brian will take a program from his collection and read me the lineup, and I am supposed to determine where it took place and what year it took place. And that is the premise of the piece, and then hilarity and wrestling history follow. Right, Brian?
Something like that, yes. I believe so.
Well, have you got the programs?
I've got a bunch of programs I'm trying to figure out an order here.
If you got the programs, I got the information.
Well, we shall see about that. Let me start with one that's a little more current. Let me open this. It actually has the ticket stubs in here with it, and there's no way to open it. What the fuck is this? Hold on. Who sealed this? What? There we go. There we go. Not everyone should seal everything.
It usually works much more smoothly, this bit.
It usually does on my show, but again, this is not my show. It's a more professional production with all the same people.
Than your show.
Yes. Here we go. Here is the lineup. I will start with the first event. Kelly Kaniski versus Buck Rock and Roll Zumhoff.
Okay.
The second event, Crippler Rip Oliver from New York versus Iceman King Parsons.
Uh-huh.
The third event, for an unnamed title, the champions, the Fantastics, Tommy Rogers and Bobby Fulton, City of Angels versus challengers, Midnight Express. Bobby Eaton and Dennis Condrey of New York.
Yeah, they were New York crazy down there in that program office.
The fourth event, a lumberjack-style match. Kevin Von Erich versus Chris Adams. An intermission. The fifth event, all 6 men in the ring, elimination match. Losers leave town. The Freebirds of Terry Gordy, Buddy Roberts, and Chick Donovan versus General Skandar Akbar, The Missing Link, and Mr. X. Somehow I don't remember that match at all.
Yeah.
The main event.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For a championship I will not name. The champion, Ric Flair of Minnesota, versus the challenger, Kerry Von Erich, Denton County. Then it's an intermission. The seventh event, Jose Lothario versus El Diablo. And finally, the eighth event, Sunshine in the Corner, Mike Von Erich and Billy Jack from the Northwest versus, with Nicola in the corner, Gino Hernandez and Jake the Snake Roberts.
I am thinking that was the card on New Year's Eve, 1984 in Fort Worth, Texas, where Flair and Kerry had that horrible match where they had to find Kerry out in his car in the cattle chute. But now wait, they did an hour Broadway, and that's a lot of matches to do an hour. And you know what? I don't remember the Fantastics and the Midnight being working against each other on the underneath of that card. Could that have been the same week, potentially in San Antonio with the Joe and Harry Freeman Coliseum, but it was instead of New Year's Eve, it was the first week of January 1985. That is the time period, the last week of December or the month of January 1985. And I don't think it's the Sportatorium in Dallas, because I don't remember Flair being there at that point. So I've got to go with either San Antonio or Fort Worth on New Year's Eve.
The building, Reunion Arena,
Son
Dallas,
of a
Texas.
bitch!
Christmas
Was that
Star
Christmas
Wars.
night? That was
Christmas Wrestling
night.
Star Wars.
God damn it.
You went right past Christmas to New Year's.
Well, because I didn't remember that being Flair and Kerry being, and that was the main event. It's not like they put the tag match on last or whatever, but I didn't remember Flair and Kerry doing Christmas night and then rematching in Fort Worth that quickly on New Year's Eve. That's what threw me off.
All right, so we're starting well here.
So I was a week away, and I was only 35 miles away, but I was in the wrong building.
All right.
And by the way, also, I'd like to register that I had 102-degree fever that night. I really did. That's what they said about Kerry within the match in Fort Worth. But I'd gotten sick and been sick for a week here at home and had to fly down to Dallas and do that show at Reunion Arena with a fever and a horrible fucking cold or whatever, and throwing the temper tantrum after we lost our first major show in the territory, which was a sign of things to come. I almost passed out. I goddamn nearly had a stroke. And then I came home and laid in bed for the next week until the day before New Year's. I had to drive to Dallas, and I stopped on the side of the road and threw up twice. So I don't remember what the fuck was going on.
That must have been tough for Flair, because he had so many matches with Kerry and so many classics with Kerry. If you watch some of the Mid-South house show footage from 84,
oh, yeah.
Just great stuff. But he never knew what he was going to get. There was no consistency. It wasn't like, I have nothing to worry about tonight. Every night, Flair had to worry if Kerry was going to be in a condition to do anything. At least at that point. In 84, 85, yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it was a crapshoot. But anyway, all right, I'm warmed up now.
All right, we got our next card here, Jim. The opening event, Billy Rayburn versus Monty Ledoux.
Oh, okay.
The second event, one fall to a finish, Danny Savage versus Texas Tornado Jack Curtis. The third event, the third and fourth event are both best 2 out of 3 falls. The official referee for both main events, the greatest of them all, Ed Strangler Lewis, assisted by Jack Gott. I won't say what town that is. The 2 main events, Jesse James versus Angelo Savoldi, and Al Alexander versus Al Galento.
Ooh, Al Spider Galento, who had a hand in was a big heel in the Memphis territory before it became even before it was owned by Goulas and Welch, and had a hand in training Tommy Gilbert. So Monty Ledoux was a guy that spent a lot of time in the Amarillo, West Texas area in the late 40s, early 50s. I think when Dean Denton was still the promoter out there, right before Dory Funk Sr. Jack Curtis, obviously, that would have been, very early on in his career. He would probably been in his rookie years. Jack Curtis, the son of George Culkin, who was the Mississippi promoter for so long. Strangler Lewis, everybody knows. Jesse James was a journeyman from the 50s through the 70s. Which Savoldi was this? Angelo?
This was Angelo Savoldi, and let me just also say double main events are finish matches tonight.
Yes, and that means there's no time limit. It's one fall to a finish.
Well, no, there were 2 out of 3 falls, but it also says they are finished.
Okay, then no time limit then. It doesn't matter how long it takes, they go to the finish. I've got to think this is West Texas. And I've got to think this is the very early 50s, probably. Amarillo, 1952. I'm not going to narrow it down any more than that.
The Stockyard City Coliseum, Oklahoma City. Wednesday, November 2nd, 1949.
All right, so I was 3 years off, and About 500 miles.
The greatest of them all, Ed, and there's a picture of Ed Strangler Lewis, it just says Ed here. Ed will be with us tonight to referee the main event. Mr. Lewis is devoting his time and money to benefit boys' work, clubs, etc. Tonight, as his guests at the ringside, that is what
At the ringside,
will be the kids from the Taylor Boys Home, Police Department Boys Club, and the YMCA Crippled Children. So there you go. Ed Strangler Lewis, 1949. It's not like he's following Fez around here.
well, he hadn't got that spot yet. That's why I was thinking it was probably the early 50s at least, because that's when they started using him to go with Thez.
All right, let me give you an easy one.
Oh, now you're condescending now.
Well, easy for you. Easy for you, not easy for the layman.
Well, that's easy for you to say.
I'm opening this one. I have not reboarded this one yet, which I need to do. So this will be the only time I do this. Here is the card. A challengers match. Sam Platania versus Charlie Carr.
Oh my God.
Adrian Belargeron.
Every
time I get it wrong. Versus Tex Riley. A special event. A ladies match. 1 fall, 1 hour time limit. Nell Stewart versus Millie Stafford. For the World Junior Heavyweight Championship, Angelo Savaldi versus Lee Fields. 2 out of 3 falls, 60-minute time limit. There'll be an intermission, at which point lucky numbers will be announced. And the main event, or one of the double main event, because you had a World Junior Heavyweight Championship match. A grudge match, 2 out of 3 falls, no time limit. Billy Wicks versus Sputnik Monroe.
Okay, well, we're in Memphis. And Sam Platania would later on go on to be a longtime referee for Gulas Welch. But at the time, this would be either mid to late 1959 or early 1960. I think he actually wrestled amateur, and they had, picked him up along the way. Charlie Carr was a longtime Tennessee babyface and was thought well of. Belargeon was one of the Belargeon brothers. I think were there 5, but they were bodybuilders and did strongman feats, and they were French Canadian.
And a cousin Lance.
Yes, and cousin Lance Belargeon. Tex Riley was one of the all-time biggest baby faces in Tennessee wrestling, whether it be Nashville, Knoxville, or Memphis. The girls were obviously well thought of at the time. Those were names. Savoldi was the junior heavyweight title. Lee Fields is a member of the Fields family, the Fields and the Hatfields, that were the cousins of the Fullers and Welches that ran the Gulf Coast down in Mobile, Alabama, and that territory. And obviously, Billy Wicks and Sputnik Monroe was the biggest drawing program in the history of Memphis wrestling for that period of time. And that's why I say this has to be one of the Memphis cards where they wrestled, probably before the Gilmore Field match. So unless this was a reprise afterwards the next year, I don't have the Memphis record book in front of me. I'm going to say fall 1959.
Memphis, Tennessee, April 6th, 1959.
All right. Well, fall comes early down south.
Billy Wicks versus Sputnik Monroe, the match of the year, demanded by you, fans, who have watched and listened to these two men battle each other with words on the Saturday TV program over Channel 5. Promoter Buddy Fuller worked out contracts with both men this week for the match that has all the indications of being the best ever seen here. Both have called each other yellow over television and actually have been anxious for the match. Wicks is a 210-pounder from Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Monroe, a 212-pounder from Wichita, Kansas, the best 2 out of 3 falls with a 90-minute time limit. So this is the start of everything with these two.
Yeah, that's the start of the program. And notice they said Channel 5. A lot of people are going to say, well, wait a minute. They went to Channel 5 when Jarrett split off from Goulas in 1977. But the first couple of years that Memphis Wrestling had gone back on television in 1957, that's when Buddy Fuller, Roy Welch, and they took it over out of the Nashville office. They sent Buddy Fuller down there. They got TV. And they soon after picked up Lance Russell and Sputnik Monroe, and that was the magic combination. But they were on Channel 5 for the first couple of years and then went to 13, where that they prospered after that.
It says here, wrestling news on radio and TV. Fans who would like to keep up with the wrestling news may listen to the Mat News on radio and television during the week. WMCT. Jack Eaton announces the card to the Jack's World of Sports on Wednesday or Thursday night, 10:15 p.m., Saturday from 5 to 6 p.m., 1 hour of live wrestling with interviews from the participating wrestlers. KWAM. Dave Hill, ring announcer at the auditorium matches, interviews wrestlers from 12 noon to 3 p.m. during the week whenever the wrestlers are in town. Monday, stay tuned to KWAM, or KWAM, I guess, for lots of wrestling news. And finally, WHHM announces card on sports program, and on Wednesday night on Party Line, we will call in to let you fans know who will be on the card next week. And also it has here live wrestling on TV every Saturday afternoon. Interesting. Every Saturday afternoon from 5 to 6 p.m. Tune in to Channel 5 to see the world's greatest professional wrestlers in action. If you'd like to attend in person, send a self-addressed stamped envelope to promoter Buddy Fuller, room 132, Chiska Hotel. Tickets are limited and are issued on a first-come, first-served basis. If you do not receive your tickets the week you write in, be patient, as they are being worked on as fast as possible.
And also the wrestling office was always in a hotel. In every Nick Goulas in Nashville had the Sam Davis Hotel and different hotels through the years. And, even the Holland Hotel for Toots Mondt and, that gang in New York back in those days. And also, Jack Eaton was the original wrestling host on Channel 5 because he was the sports guy, Big Jack Eaton. He was the guy that hosted the sports on the news, and he was the first one there before they settled in with Lance.
Well, it's interesting, too, to think about the idea that if you were a wrestling fan, there was, not a lot of wrestling TV shows, but there was a lot of wrestling content. You had to listen to the radio. You got local promos in between, I guess, the songs, right?
Yeah, well, and also...
That's crazy. In between the songs, you got local promos from 12 to 3 once a week?
Yeah, well, they'd have one of the guys come in and sit down for a while, and one of the other guys, and after, a couple of records, they'd come to him, hey, so Monday night, blah, blah, blah. And I've mentioned this even in the 80s. I would rush back to Memphis on Friday night from wherever the spot show was, or Tupelo or whatever, so I could get the early edition of the morning paper right there on Summer Avenue. It came out the paper box at the shopping center. By 1 o'clock in the morning, you'd have an early edition of the morning paper, and that would have the card for Monday night. So before I got to TV on Saturday morning, Friday night late, I could find out what the fuck I was doing on Monday night. Because it was a weekly town. It's not like they were giving you cards weeks out. And then it might be a false booked card, because if they were going to do an angle on TV on Saturday morning and change the match, they would put in a false booked main event, so-and-so versus so-and-so. and they would announce that card at the top of the program. That's the one that would have been in the newspaper ad. Then the angle happens, and they change the goddamn match. So people believed it because it was in the ad. They were going to have a whole nother match. Anyway.
All right, Jim, a couple more here before we wrap things up this week. It is your show. This one, where's the card? Here we go. Opening event, Anton Leone versus Ivan Jones, one fall, 20-minute time limit. The preliminary, one fall, 20-minute time limit, Pat McGill versus Chris Zaharias.
Good Lord.
And the main event, is it one main event or two main events? Oh, no,
I hope you're going to give me more to go on.
Special handicap attraction. The Blimp agrees to throw both men a fall apiece within 20 minutes. The Blimp, weight 640 pounds, versus Roberto Pico and Oki Shikima, which is the way it's spelled. Well, the way it's spelled here, Shikima. And the main event, 2 out of 3 falls, 1 hour time limit for the World's Heavyweight Championship. The champion Dave Levin versus the Golden Angel.
Oh boy. Okay, this is probably a Pfeffer promotion. Anton Ripper Leone would later on in the 70s, he ran Townsend was a promoter for Roy Shire in the San Francisco Bay Area, and then later on did his own thing when he was on the outs with Shire. Ivan Jones may have been the illegitimate love child of Paul Jones and Ivan Koloff. I'm not sure about Pat McGill. Chris Zaharias. Goddamn, now
he's the brother.
I keep mixing up because Babe Zaharias was Babe Diedrichson, who married George Zaharias. But Chris Zaharias was a brother, but there was also a Babe Zaharias that was a guy that really wasn't a member of the Zaharias family per se, but used the name. Martin the Blimp Levy was one of the guys along with the Levy or Levy or which Levy.
Yeah, everyone I know with that name, and I grew up around a bunch of kids. It's Levy. That they were at least pronounced Levy.
Okay. Well, they wore Levi's, so you can see the confusion. But Martin the Blimp was a Pfeffer creation that was big, especially in the mid to late 40s, because he would wrestle Maurice Tillet, the French Angel, and the Freak match. And a lot of the guys were in the service, so that main evented for a while and drew money because of the sideshow aspect of it. Roberto Pico was a guy that wrestled in these days, and this is the original Oki Shikina. There was a Oki Shikina in the 70s that wrestled a lot in the South, but that wouldn't be him because this would be in the late 1940s. And the world title, Dave Levin was the world champion that Pfeffer propped up for a while because he had wins over some of the other guys that at one point or another had been recognized champion. And I've got a couple of the publicity posters that they had put out with Levin's case that he was making, and they were dated sometime in the late 40s. The Golden Angel is probably because the French Angel or the Swedish Angel was booked.
The Golden Angel, I will tell you this, the Golden Angel from the photo here is one of the future Bummy Rogers.
Okay, so he wasn't even really...
Maybe the original Bummy Rogers, actually.
There wasn't anything wrong with him. He was just a regular-looking fella. He wasn't an angel with a glandular problem.
Looks like a man wearing a cape or whatever it is.
So, I mean, positioning-wise, location-wise, boy, howdy. Maybe, I'm just going to say somewhere in the Northeast in 1947.
Ooh, so close. Monday, September 16th, 1946. Mammoth Gardens, Denver, Colorado.
Denver, Colorado. Good Lord. Okay, maybe. Well, Zaharias was on the card. They used to call George Zaharias when he was a heel, the crying Greek from Cripple Creek.
Here's a picture of Dave Levin, world's heavyweight champ and junior heavyweight champ. Dave Levin, the wonder boy of wrestling, willing to defend his title against any other claimant to the world's title. And that was the move, right? Just all of a sudden saying you have a champion.
Yeah.
My guy's willing to take on Joe Stecker. It's just he's not here.
You know, I understand that the champion of Garbage Championship Wrestling in Poughkeepsie, New Jersey, is willing to face Cody Rhodes anytime, any place, anywhere.
For the record, Poughkeepsie has nothing to do with New Jersey. Don't try that, buddy. The promotion is Rocky Mountain Sports Enterprises. The matchmaker, I got to get this right, Bill Jelliffe. The commissioners, and it lists the commissioners here, the chief inspector, Harry Walls. The referees, Dan Darnell and Jack Bloom. Timekeepers, announcer Sam Siegel. 2 physicians. The chief of ushers, Matt Meach. The organist, Marion Schultz. And finally, the doormen, the Pinkerton Detective Agency.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of these people, they're friends of the promoter, or they hang around and they get to do these jobs, and it was a big deal to mention, you know, their names in the program, so they like that kind of thing.
Coming next week, world's most colorful wrestler, magnificent Buddy Rogers, the Atomic Blonde.
Wow.
Rogers has posted $500 that he could beat the blimp in 30 minutes or forfeit the $500. It's a tough job, but Rogers says he can do it. How about that?
And that 1946, that would be his first run as a heel, as the Nature Boy, or not even as but as the Atomic Blonde, because 1945, the atomic bomb was all over the news, and that's when he became the Atomic Blonde before he was even known as Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, correct?
I believe
so. That would be like the first few months he was doing it.
Coming soon, and I may get this wrong, Pierre Lassartis, French underground hero. I have no idea who that is.
Well, he was a hero of the French underground.
And then here's a couple of pictures of the blimp. Blimp weighing in at New York, Madison Square Garden. The 8th wonder of the world, the blimp. 640 pounds, the only one alive. You must see the human monster.
Well, you didn't see a lot of 600-something pound guys in those days because they didn't have my 600-pound life on the fucking Learning Channel or whatever.
All right, let me go to another one here. This will be
one more. This is my last one, baby. I'm going to come in. I'm going to finish strong.
All right, I'm going to give you one that's kind of in your wheelhouse in a sense, in a generational sense. The opening bout, John Condrey versus Hiro Matsuda. And it looks like they may have made it a tag bout. Bubba Douglas and John Condrey versus Hiro Matsuda and Professor Sonata. Coco Samoa, filling in for Jerry Briscoe, against Gordon Nelson. The Outlaw Deaton Brothers versus Charlie Cook and Sweet Brown Sugar.
Wait a minute, hold on now. Charlie Cook and Sweet Brown Sugar, who was Skip Young. And who's the brother of Joel Deaton there? Was it, what was his gimmick brother's name?
Carlos?
It would, come on. It wasn't.
I don't know.
Vernon Deaton was one of the job guys from South Carolina that worked with Crockett, but the Deaton brothers, I can't remember.
$5,000 challenge bout. El Gran Apollo versus Buzz Sawyer.
Okay.
$1,000 bounty match. Tommy Gilbert versus The Sheik.
Okay.
Jack Briscoe versus Assassin Number 1. And the final bout, Lights Out Texas Death Match. Mike Graham versus Dory Funk Jr.
Well, we are in Florida, obviously, and the year I'm going to be pretty certain of is 1981. John Condrey, I don't know who that is. Do you even remember?
I don't know who that is, no.
No, you would think it might be related to Dennis, except he's not. Um, Bubba Douglas was the honorary mayor of Lakeland, Florida, the big, happy-go-lucky black guy that they used for years down there as a local mid-card babyface. People loved him. Hiro Matsuda obviously is a legend and worked in the Florida office by this point. And Sanada, goddamn, didn't he have some kind of gimmick later on? Sanada, did he become?
That's not Kendo Nagasaki, no.
Okay, well,
I don't
anyway,
think so. I'm not sure though.
He worked there a bit. Coco Samoa is the guy who wrestled in Memphis in 1983 or 82, I'm sorry, as Sabu the Wild Man before the Sabu that everybody knows today, the Sheik's nephew, was around. He was a babyface in Florida, but he was a wild heel because he was a Samoan guy, very short, but like a Snuka-like body. Gordon Nelson was, again, a longtime Florida talent and worked in the office at various points and was a shooter that could stretch you from asshole to appetite. We mentioned the Deatons. Charlie Cook was a former, I don't know if he played in the NFL, but he had some type of football background gimmick. And Sweet Brown Sugar was Skip Young under the mask.
Sonata was the Magic Dragon.
That's right, the Magic Dragon. The boys called him Puff. But Sugar, Skip Young, he used that, and then they used it for Coco where in Memphis because it turned out good, and they did. Who was first, Sweet Brown Sugar in Florida taking the mask, or Rocky Johnson being Sweet Ebony Diamond in the Carolinas?
I think Sweet Brown Sugar would have been first, because I think Rocky Johnson was 82, wasn't he?
Probably, because I was seeing him do that right before I got into business, and I was still going to some of the matches in Cincinnati.
81, 82, yeah. I mean, it's around the same time, yeah. How come every gimmick that was successful for a black wrestler ended up on Coco within like a couple of years?
Stagger Lee, too.
Stagger Lee, yeah.
Because Lawler loved Coco, and he was always trying to book him and make something different because, same guy, same place for so long. Same thing with Plowboy Frazier. El Gran Apollo was a real good-looking kid that I think was from Cuba. Or, I'm trying to remember, but they got him over as one of the top baby faces in this time period. And this was early heel Buzz Sawyer. Tommy Gilbert was down there at that point because I think he had probably just left Tennessee, and that's where he went. Eddie, at that point, I believe, is that when Eddie started his run in the WWF? Or they were WWF by that point. When he got in that, ended up when he got in that car wreck. But he was up there to be the protege of Bob Backlund. So Tommy was a single down here. I believe that's the way it happened. The Sheik was coming in and out of Florida at that point because he had very few options and was not getting booked by a lot of people. And I remember it being odd because of his age at that point. He was closing in on 60, and Florida was a different kind of territory than normally, how did Thez put it, brooked the Sheik's foolishness.
Hey, since you mentioned it, I'll tell you, I found it here. Gentleman Jim Kent is managing Joel and David Deaton.
That's okay. David Deaton was a Deaton there in name only. He didn't continue, I don't think. And Jimmy Kent was a longtime Tennessee manager. He was from, I believe, he originally the Chattanooga area, and he managed the Bounty Hunters for so long. But anyway, the Sheik, I don't know who the bounty was on. I don't know whether the bounty was on Tommy Gilbert or the Sheik was going for. I don't know what's happening. But Jack Briscoe and the assassin number one, that would have been Jody Hamilton. And Mike Graham and Dory Funk Jr., I think we know who they are. And I've got to believe it's 1981 and we're in Florida. And I'm wondering because of the number of matches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's got to be a bigger town. Is the card big enough for the Bayfront Center in St. Petersburg? I don't actually think so. I could be wrong. But at the same point, would this be in a bigger town in the north end of the state like Jacksonville or down south in Miami Beach? Let's go with Miami Beach, by God, 1981. How's that?
Tuesday, July 21st, 1981, 8:30 p.m. You didn't guess the time, so I'm not going to give you credit. Fort Hesterly Armory, Tampa, Florida.
God damn it. God damn it.
You know, some of the...
It wasn't a St. Petersburg Bayfront big show, but it was big enough for Tampa.
There's a few interesting ads in here. One of them for the best deal in real estate called Ronald C. Reed. And then in quotes, Buddy Colt, realtor associate. He is with Tambay Realty. And then, obviously, Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. But the one that really stands out, because I've never seen this before, custom t-shirts by Marty 2. And it appears to be a picture of a pre-funk Marty Funk.
Oh!
And some other girl wearing a Mike Graham shirt. Marty wearing the Briscoe Brothers Body Shop. Briscoe Brothers Body Shop, Sweet Brown Sugar, Steve Kern. $6 plus $1 postage. Color picture shirts of Steve, Mike Graham, and other favorites. $10 plus postage. Marty 2, and there's an address in Ocala, I guess I should say. Ocala, yes. Florida.
We have found Marty's previous occupation.
Oh, and Dory Funk's on the card. This may have been when she met Dory.
Well, I'm pretty sure she probably already knew Dory at this point in time.
She may have known Steve Kern, too.
Are you talking in the biblical sense? What are you trying to say here?
Well, she has his T-shirts. Obviously.
Well, she didn't physically remove them from his body.
I said she must
have known of.
If she's selling Steve Kern color shirts, not even just shirts, but color, she must know the guy. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I could be selling my own used panties.
Are you doing that again? Because I heard people that got shut out last time.
No, I'm still wearing them.
Well, that was Guess the Program, featuring the Human Monster and so much more.